that was quick. Wait, Christine, we're live?
Yeah.
Are we good? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, we were live with Happy and Succeeding, the Future of Work. And we have Lisa Lewin today, CEO. Uh, uh, I got to ask you this. Why General Assembly? Because
it's a great.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good question. I can take no credit nor any blame, but I can't take any credit for the name. The term how it evolved really has to do with General Assembly's origin story, which is when the founders, Jake Schwartz, who I know you also know, and his co-founders really established General Assembly. It was first as a co-working space. The Flatiron campus that evolved to become its flagship campus and the HQ for the whole company. It was originally a co-working space that was intended to assemble and bring together, right? Think of an assemblage or an assembly of great minds in the interest of thinking new thoughts and creating new ideas, particularly around emerging technologies. So I think that's how the name.
That makes, I never thought of it that way. Now it all is clear. I was always wondering, but you know how you wonder, but you don't want to ask because you want to be like rude or be dumb. Like, why is that? But I found out that it's better to ask questions even if it makes you feel dumb, so this way you know the answers and I feel better. So
yeah, I'm glad you asked, because I'm sure half of my friends think I work for the UN, so this was a great thing to
seriously. When I first when Alan DeHaze was saying about General Assembly, I did, between us, I thought it was like a UN thing. I wasn't sure. I'm like,
sure, the Adecco group acquire the UN. Yeah.
I was like, oh, sure, that sounds interesting. I'm like, I don't know anything about the UN. I was a kid when I went to UN with my class, but that's about it. But okay. So maybe you could tell a little bit about General Assembly, because I think, as I understand, what you do is fantastic. You offer classes, coursework, upskilling, so people could kind of pivot and reinvent themselves, maybe go into tech, into different sectors, and really empower workers so that they can kind of take their career to the next level. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the type of things that you offer.
Absolutely. So I'll share with you a little bit about where General Assembly started in its roots, which was it was established about a decade ago, and the whole idea behind it, in addition to being a co-working space, was to host programs and classes that helped folks who maybe weren't in tech get access to a great tech career. And it has been doing that ever since, just on a larger and larger scale, and increasing the programs that it offers in areas like software engineering, in UX design, in program management, in product management, in an array of both digital and tech fields, and classes that are not just effective because they're built by folks in the field. That was one of the kind of core choices that was made at the very beginning, that we still do, which is all of our curriculum is designed by folks in industry who understand the roles that we're training for. But the other thing is that they're designed to be really, really lively, really engaging, really fun, and in a cohort-based model where folks are actually kind of learning, studying, and getting great energy one to another. So that has always been GA's core, and we've just continued to really build on that legacy. The other thing that we do, Jack, in addition to offering programming for individuals, is we also have a really robust enterprise business. I know that you have talked to a number of CHROs, CEOs, CIOs, CTOs on this show, and one of the common pain points that everyone is having right now is attracting talent. Attracting talent right now is really hard. Attracting tech talent is even harder. And on the topic of, say, diversity, attracting a tech workforce that is also as diverse as users of technology is even harder. And so, in addition to the work that we do to deliver programs to individuals, we also do a tremendous amount of work with large enterprises in giving them solutions that help them get access to great job ready, diverse tech talent. And then lastly, the last thing that we do is we actually do a lot of work with government entities at the city level, at the state level, and at the national level to really stand up effective, what we call community reskilling programs that help leaders, in the public sector to really create more thriving talent ecosystems and ensure that local folks have got the sort of, digital and tech skills that they need to be employed, which is particularly important given all of the dislocation and disruption that we've had in the labor market since COVID. So that's what we do.
Yeah, I think what you do is so important because as you pointed out, yeah, I've been speaking to so many folks lately, and in terms of the tech sector in particular, it seems as if the last 2 years, and to use a trite way of saying it, accelerated, unprecedented rate, in that it took us into this kind of digital online world, which maybe it would have taken another 10 years, but it compressed it into this tight frame. So now you have all this innovation, all these new companies being started, all these apps, these platforms, innovation, and there's not enough people. Literally, there's not enough people to go there and do the job, which is, in a way, it's good, but in a way, it's challenging because it stands in the way of progress if you don't have enough people to do it. So you can't just manufacture folks, but you can train them and upskill them. And that's, I think, the key of what you folks do, is that you're able to take maybe someone like myself or Christine, our producer, who's behind the scenes working everything, to say, hey, would you maybe be interested in moving into cybersecurity and being a software engineer, a developer, or what have you? And that's, I think, a really smart way of how you can kind of build out that pool. And then also to build it out, from a diversity perspective as well, to tap into folks who may have not been apprised of all these opportunities, to say, hey, come on in, we want you, we'll train you, and you can join us. So I think you have the right services at the right time, and it serves kind of a huge need, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what we're seeing. I mean, I think you've captured it really well. Another way to think about it is that if you are a chief information officer, a chief technology officer, or a CHRO, you have a fundamental challenge right now when it comes to keeping your tech workforce staffed, which is you've got more roles than there are people to fill them. Right? It's exactly the opposite in a lot of other fields where there are usually, more people for the number of roles, and where attracting and recruiting talent is a selection game, right? It's a matter of how do we separate all the wheat from the chaff to identify the person that meets that requirement. What we have right now in tech, because of the kind of rapid technologization of every industry that's only accelerated in the last couple of years, you have exactly the opposite, where there are more empty spots than there are people to fill, that there are people trained to fill them. And so that has opened up a lot of new, really exciting opportunities. Number one, it has opened up an opportunity for a different approach to education, this sort of, accelerated, very fit to purpose, very industry aligned mode of education that, we sometimes refer to as, the boot camp, but it's effectively to say, look, traditional higher ed does a great job of graduating a new crop of several thousand new technologists into the field through computer science programs every year, and that's only a fraction of the total need. So we've got to access new ways. There have got to be new means, new pathways, like ours and like folks like us. There have got to be new and more accelerated pathways to training up and skilling up the right talent for the field. But the other opportunity that it's opened up is it has basically forced companies to say, we need to think about talent differently, right? We need to, when we're looking outside, we need to maybe change our traditional approach, which is looking at things like, pedigree, the requirement for a four-year college degree, and maybe look at some other alternative types of credentials. And it is also, and you said it beautifully, it's also, triggered this need to look internally as well and say, how do we take folks who are in roles that are maybe obsolete or will be obsolete, and how do we retrain them and reskill them for these new roles? And so that's really the sort of support that we provide on both sides of that equation. That's the support, and those are the services we provide to companies who are trying to either upskill or reskill their internal employee base, and or tap into non-traditional external pools. And then on the job seeker side of that, for people who feel like, who maybe have experience in one field, but really want to be technologists, we offer that pathway and that on-ramp into a vibrant and higher wage tech field.
So for people who are watching this now, if they're interested, how would this work? Are the courses long, they short, or can you kind of can you go different paths? Maybe you could kind of share, how does this all play out?
Yeah, absolutely. So luckily, there are many pathways to a tech career. One is one that we talked about, which is, traditional higher education. If you at, 17, 18, 19 years old already know that you want to enter the field, you can choose to sort of, major in, in computer science or another STEM field. And that's one really, really vibrant path that I wish more young people would choose, and I wish more and more diverse young people would choose. So there's that. So let's put that to one side. But not everybody has access to that pathway in traditional higher education, and not everybody knows that that's the path they want to take at 17, 18, 19, or 20. So there's an entire universe of folks that are maybe mid-career, or folks that maybe did not have access to traditional higher education, which is not inexpensive. And so
I have two kids, so I know very well. It
is not cheap. Well, you and I will both be working for a very long time. Retirement, I've got them too. Retirement is nowhere close for either of us. So that is, so that's not a pathway that's necessarily accessible to everybody. And so what we do is we create a really accelerated program. You can come if you're an individual and you're interested in, in becoming a Java developer, or you're interested in digital marketing, or you're interested in product management, and you have not, and that is not the field that you're coming from. We offer both intensive, immersive courses that are only about, 12 or so weeks, 10 to 12 weeks, where
that's
you
not
can
long at all.
No.
Right? That's not long at all.
That's right. But it is hyper-focused on the skills that you need to really enter, to be an entry level and productive and job ready, either developer or data analyst or business analyst or digital marketer. So that's one type of program that we offer. Another type of program that we offer is you can do that on a more flexible basis. I think one of the things that we have learned over the last couple of years is that people want to be able to work and learn in ways that meet and that are flexible and that match and align with their own lives and their own needs. So we also have flexible kind of evening and weekend. It's a little longer. It takes, a few more weeks, but you can do it outside of your day job, if you will. And then we also, in addition to our immersives, we also have just shorter kind of, upskilling type programs, where they might be a couple of weeks or a few weeks, and you can completely do them outside of your work and get your skills sort of just topped up a little bit in some of these key technology areas. So those are the type of programs that we offer.
And that's great. And as I understand, you have formally started out, as you mentioned, with co-working space, and you had your roots in the physical, where you would have offices, buildings and such. But just fairly recently, you moved all virtual. So for people who want to take courses, you don't have to worry about schlepping to whatever office or whatever. They could just do it from the comfort of their own home and just log online, right? I guess that's how it works.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we did that for a few reasons. Number one, Again, the pandemic has, probably permanently changed the way that we think about both working and learning, and adults really are looking for opportunities to access, to access learning in a way that fits into their lives, and that's increasingly in, hybrid and remote environments. And so this was really just following the needs and the wants and the new expectations of our customer base. So that's number one. Number two, this was a really important way of us expanding our reach to more people who are looking for this opportunity. Meaning, when we were fully campus-based, our reach, our market reach, was largely limited to the drive time or
Exactly.
the commute time to each of our
Yeah.
campuses. And this has really allowed us to literally expand across borders our ability to deliver this opportunity to more folks. So that's another really critical
So
reason.
that's
And
exciting.
it is.
What country, what countries are you in now or plan to be in?
Yeah, sure. Well, first I'll start with our kind of, what has historically been
Yeah.
our core, which is, largely kind of, big Anglophone countries. So US, Canada, UK, Singapore, Australia. And I'll tell you, even in those markets, just going virtual has allowed us to expand our reach, even in the countries where we previously had a footprint. For example, we never had a campus in Idaho. We never had a
Right.
campus.
Right.
And, there were a lot of markets. There were a lot of, a lot of cities, a lot of places where we didn't, where we couldn't previously reach. And so now we have, larger student reach even in our core markets. But the other thing that we've been able to do and are really excited about is, we have ambition, the fundamental need that we've been talking about, the need of employers to build a tech workforce. Those tech workforces that companies are building are global, and people that are seeking that career change opportunity and are seeking access to a tech field, those are folks that are also all over the world. And so we want to be able to be that bridge between employers that need great talent and talent that's looking for a great opportunity. We want to be able to deliver our services anywhere in the world. And so going virtual has also enabled us to accelerate growing our global footprint. We had, a great expansion most recently into France, into Japan, and into other areas around the world, far beyond what our original footprint was. And a lot of that has been enabled precisely because we've gone virtual.
When you have the international, education, are the people planning? So let's say it's in Africa or Asia or Europe or wherever. Are you anticipating that people stay and work there, or would they be remote workers for, let's say, Silicon Valley? Or do they have their choice and say, hey, maybe I'll stay where I live and get a job where I am, or I could take that certification, say that accreditation, and I don't know, let's see, maybe I want to try my hand at Silicon Valley. Maybe I want to go to a startup in, I don't know, New York City. Is that
Yeah.
how it will work?
Well, I think what you're speaking to, Jack, is the fact that for people who have digital and tech skills, they have a lot of choice.
Yeah.
Meaning the answer to your question is, all of the above. If you are able to skill yourself in some of these really in-demand areas, then there's plenty of choice. You have employers that are staffing fully remote positions. You have employers that are still looking to hire remotely staff on site. And that's the whole point, right? The whole idea behind someone upskilling and reskilling themselves is to give themselves career choice and career resilience, so that if they want to choose to work remotely, there are plenty of employers now that have gone to, permanently remote first staffing. And for those that are really looking to work someplace that is, more place-based, the good news is, if you've got these digital and tech skills, you've got a lot of choice in terms of, in terms of employers that you can work for.
See, this is wild. I think we're getting away enough from the pandemic that it doesn't sound crass to say, But I find there's so much great things have happened in the wake of this. And what you're talking about is one of them. Let me give you an example. Like I spoke to some of these folks at places like Deal and remote.com and Angels List Talent, and what they've been doing because they can't find talent here in the US. So they are kind of going global to find, remote workers. And what struck me as just wild that if you and I had this conversation 4 years ago, we like, this is crazy. So then they would find people who have the skills already, let's say in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East, in Latin America. And so they work remotely for, let's say, Silicon Valley companies or US companies, but then also they get paid in Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. So now all of a sudden you get these kind of ecosystems in different countries where you have kind of a tech hub plus kind of a crypto hub, which is just mind blowing how in just a short time, you're just, things are just changing so dramatically.
I mean, truly, Jack, I mean, can you think of any time, in our entire lifetimes or careers where there has been this much evolution and revolution in the people and talent in HR space? Because I can't.
Not
I
at
mean,
all.
it is absolutely, I mean, it's absolutely stunning. And I have to, I have to give a shout out to all of the CHROs there of any role. All of our roles have evolved and changed dramatically. The role of CEO is already different today than it was 2 years ago. Every role in the organization is, but I think the role for whom that's most true is probably the CHRO. Because even just in your statement just now, Jack, I mean, you talked about changes in the way that we recruit, changes in the way that companies select talent, changes in the way that companies pay talent, changes in the way that companies locate talent, and the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, and I love seeing, and this is interesting because we all go through this. You come home after work, maybe you eat, you watch maybe some cable news, and then you find everybody just yelling at each other in their little boxes and fighting. Maybe you decide to scroll through social media, everybody's at each other's throats. But meanwhile, people like yourself, I speak to every day, like, a couple times a day, doing really cool stuff, but you don't see them as much. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this kind of podcast, because all you hear is doom, gloom, hate, anger, everything is terrible. I mean, yeah, things are rough. Yeah, some people have it even worse than others, but there's a lot of good that's coming up. If you could kind of to dial back to what you said earlier. So if, let's say you have somebody right now who's watching, who's miserable and happy in their job, dead end job, maybe they lost their job. And you said it very casual, but to me, it sounds so important. And if you could learn Java, let's say in a 12-week period, or even more than that, 20 weeks. So what? 20 weeks is nothing in a lifetime. And
That
all
you
of a
can
sudden,
reinvent your career.
right? That is monumental. That is amazing. Now, you can't guarantee that all of a sudden they're going to become this, chief technology officer overnight, but at least they're in the game. At least they have a chance. At least they have a
Exactly.
path. At least they have direction. And to me, that's amazing. Or even data analytics, because that's such a hot area.
Absolutely.
It's funny, right before we called, I was just, looking at LinkedIn, and the woman who I interviewed at the Tableau chief data officer was like, wow, I didn't know there were so many. She was referencing something I wrote today from Overstack. Like, I didn't realize how many jobs are out there and how many people are looking. And it's great. So for people who feel stuck, who feel lost, who don't know what to do,
That's right.
it opens up their door for a well-paying, fast growing career, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. One of the things that we say internally is, when people come to us, they're not just, they're not just devoting, their time and their money. They're really bringing their kind of, their hopes and their dreams, and because ultimately that's what shifting a career is, right? It's like you're taking a bet on yourself. And even in all of the disruption that we've experienced in the labor market over the last 2 years, as you rightfully said, that disruption has bred some opportunity. It's bred tremendous opportunity, a tremendous rethink of things that needed to be rethought, right? I'm happy that we are in a place where your average sort of, hiring manager or head of talent acquisition needs to be more open to looking at talent in different ways, as opposed to just all of the old traditional ways,
Do you-
because that means
yeah.
new opportunities for people.
Now, what do you think? Because it's always tough when you have somebody, and this is even with the hybrid, going back to the office, remote, when you have people who are doing something for 20, 30, 40 years, it's so hard to change if they're used to, okay, let me see your college degree. Oh, wait, you jumped around too much, and fall back on these kind of old style way of looking where we're in this kind of new paradigm. Do you think it just might take a little bit for, the heads of HR, chief people officers to kind of, get that, hey, the game has changed. It's not like it used to be. Why do you have to go to a 4-year degree, spend literally $200,000-300,000 on that degree, where maybe you could get someone who has great, and tell me if this makes sense in terms of people who could come to General Assembly, who just have the aptitude, have the drive, have the motivation, but don't have the money to spend, 100,000 a year, 70,000, 50,000 a year in tuition, but could learn and apply. And why can't that certificate be just as good if they could code as well, if not better, than the person who went to Carnegie Mellon or whatever?
Well, I mean, look, I think the current reality has sort of forced that change, right? Because everything is a matter of sort of, risk reward. And in a cooler talent market, right, where there are plenty of applicants, qualified applicants for one job, the sort of risk reward there is you want to be, super selective,
Yes.
and you're really, and it's really just sort of screening. But we're in a moment where for a lot of roles and a lot of jobs, it's exactly the opposite. And so that has really forced a certain degree of sort of, creativity and fresh thinking. There are always those innovative, there are always those innovative, heads of talent, those innovative CHROs who even before the pandemic really got this, right? This conversation about looking at non-traditional talent and non-traditional credentials is not 2 years old. It's over a decade old, and even older if you think about kind of the history of kind of quality vocational training. But I think what's happened in the last 2 is that so much dramatic change and transformation in the talent market has taken folks that were maybe laggards or were resistors, and it's really forced a conversation to say, we just can't get the talent we need using the traditional methods and the traditional talent pools. We need to both diversify the methods and diversify the pools that we tap into.
And to add on to that point, I've seen such a rapid change in how companies are treating employees as well. So that, well, I'm seeing 4-day work weeks, staggered schedule, flexibility. Hey, Lisa, you could come into the office when you want to, if you want to. You want to come in all week? Great. You don't want to come in all week? Fine. Digital nomads. So you're leaving, let's say, San Francisco, going to a lower cost area, but still getting paid the same. So it is kind of remarkable. Mental health days off. Some companies like LinkedIn, which we're streaming on, close their offices for a week. So there's no pressure that you have to go on Slack and tend to emails and messages. If we had this conversation 3 years ago, you'd roll your eyes at me like, Jeff, come on, that's silly. That's not going to happen. And it's right. And now it's commonplace. So you're right. So the chief HR folks and the chief people officers and the exec, they're getting it. They're starting to realize, hey, and you hit it on the head, in a hot job market, they really have no choice but to do what's right for the employees, because otherwise they can't recruit, attract, retain them, and they're going to leave. So it's almost like you have to offer this and you have to do this, because if you don't, as a company, you'll fall behind, no?
Well, and I think there's also another angle here, which is, effectively we were all thrust into sort of, a grand experiment. And so there is also just legitimately much more evidence now than there was that people can be as productive and in many instances more productive in a remote environment, that you can get greater engagement if you allow adults to adult and make their own choices about when they work and how they work and where they need to work. That judging performance based on outcomes and outputs is ultimately a much more, is a much stronger arbiter of sort of, company performance and company health than face time. It may be obvious that those things are true now, but the truth is that, we had an explosion of forced experiments, right, across every industry that have now validated a lot of the things that, that people were just sort of, yelling on street corners, 10 years ago. Now we had to try all those crazy ideas,
Right?
and it turns out that a lot
It's
of them
wow.
were successful and were accurate.
It's what to go back to the classes. This might not be a fair question because everybody is so different, but since you have your hands on the pulse of what's going on, the job market, where the jobs are, do you have any kind of suggestions for people? Would you focus on maybe skills that could go into virtual reality in the metaverse, or anything that you feel for people who aren't sure, like, hey, I want to get in this space, but I don't even know where to go, what to do. Do you have any thoughts, like to kind of say, okay, if you're not sure, hey, here are some cool areas that you see there's a lot of growth potential?
Yeah, that's I've
Is
been
it
thinking
across the
about this a
board?
lot.
Is it
Like what?
everywhere?
Well, look, there are the things. I think there are two ways to look at it, right? There's one is there are always going to be evergreen skills that no matter where we are in the evolution of any particular technology, we could be on Web 6, Web 10, Web, and the truth is there are always going to be some evergreen skills that are going to be critical. And so, if you ask me what should, young people think about, what skills are going to be most critical, most evergreen, and most, and give them the most longevity, it's things like the ability to learn, right? So, a skill for learning, a skill for problem solving, critical thinking, being able to communicate well, being able to write well, and strong numeracy. Like those are always going to be the basics. So once you have, once you have those sort of foundational, those foundational skills, then it's really just a matter of at any given point in time, looking at the market and saying, if you want to be viable and marketable, then then get in a pattern and a habit of being a lifelong learner. Get in the habit of just saying every single year when you make your New Year's resolutions, think, what in-demand skill do I want to learn and develop, this year or this season or this quarter? I think that one of the things that can be that can sometimes be an obstacle for folks is when you do get to a stage in your career where you feel like you have mastery in one field. It's sometimes hard to kind of humble oneself a little bit to go and learn a new skill from the very beginning. But that ability to do that, to really be an apprentice at any age, I think is really the critical thing. Because if you can do that, then whatever the skill du jour is, it may be the metaverse today and that's going to be something else tomorrow. Whatever is the skill du jour, that skill to be able to learn, and the sort of humility to be an apprentice many times over in one's lifetime and career, I think is really that's the most valuable skill.
I love that advice because it's like I'm into kind of Buddhism and yoga, and it's like the beginner's mindset, which is hard to do.
Exactly.
When you kind of go into it with that, exactly, you put your ego aside, have a fresh perspective, and then just focus on what you want to do without all the other baggage attached to it. And that, with saying that, would you suggest, if you're not sure, maybe take different classes to feel out how it is? Because you may say, I want to be a programmer because you hear that's cool. I want to be a software designer when you feel that's like where I'm going to get all the money. But maybe that is right or not right. To hedge your bets, could someone do that? Like, is is it too challenging to take several things at once, or one at a time? How would that play out?
Sure. Well, I mean, I would say now is a great time to be an explorer, a
Right.
career explorer, and a skill explorer, because there are any number of no and low cost opportunities. General Assembly certainly has a few of them. We've got a number of kind of self-paced discovery programs that you can access by even going to our website that give you a little taste of what
Right.
it's like to be at the beginning of becoming a developer, at the beginning of becoming an analyst. But there are many others. It's really a phenomenal time to be able to sit in front of one's computer and within a Google search or two have access to no and low cost content that lets you dabble a little bit to see what you're interested in. um, and I just love that. I think that uh, it used to be that you had to make really deep commitments of
Yeah.
time and money to sort of explore, to shift careers, and now that's just no longer true.
See, that's great because you can kind of dip your toes in the water instead of jumping into the deep end, spending a fortune. You could say, hey, you know what? Data analytics seems interesting. Let me try that out. Or digital marketing. Maybe that's something I could do. Let me feel that out. And then say, because sometimes you
And
may
then
have
see, that's
a
right.
preconceived notion. And one thing that struck me is really interesting what you mentioned just previously. See, it sounds to me like I would have assumed that, hey, if let's say I wanted to kind of learn how to code or do software, you would want to have certain aptitudes. But when you mentioned just, critical thinking, um, writing skills and communication skills, that barrier isn't so hard compared to what I thought it might be, right? So that's doable, right? It's not like over. I figured you would have to be like this, what is it? The right brain, like you really have to be kind of fantastic at it. So it sounds like if you have the drive, the desire, the want, and your critical thinking, some good communication skills, um, then you're pretty good to go, right?
I mean, look, it's like, entering into a tech field is,
Yeah.
is like entering into anything else. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, it's going to be, a matter of both, passion and
Right.
aptitude for content. Some people are going to be drawn to technical
Yeah.
content, and many won't. Some are going to find that it comes naturally to them, and others are going to find that different things
Yeah.
come naturally to them. I think the thing that is really exciting about this moment is that there are low barrier ways to
Yeah.
explore something new. And once you hone in on what it is that you think that you want to do, there are so many more pathways that are affordable and that do not require a huge opportunity cost in terms of time to make that career shift. So for people who've got the drive and have got the aptitude and are willing to again have that beginner's mindset, and I love that you brought
Yeah.
that up. There are just so many opportunities to reinvent oneself, and not just do it once, Jack. There are opportunities to reinvent one's career over and over and over again.
I think that's the future now. I think that's how it's going to be. Where,
I agree.
in our parents' generation, it was okay. Like my parents were in teaching, and that's it. They were in teaching. They spent the whole career doing that. Now, particularly say Gen Z, you're going to see like 5, 6, 7 careers and like 4, 5, 6 jobs within those careers, and that's good and that's healthy. That's cool because things do change so quickly. Why do you have to be stagnant? You can say, hey, okay, I did X, but now I want to do Y. Now I want to do this. I think that's healthy. It keeps you fresh and keeps you interested. And that's exciting to see that you don't have to feel stuck. I'm this and I'm going to be this for 40 years. If you think about it, that's kind of nuts looking back, right? You say, okay, I'm going to do this because I started and I'm going to do this for 20, 30, 40 years. Well, there's such a big world out there with so many other things to do and so many ways to learn new things to do. You know,
That's right. That's
I,
exactly right.
I can tell you, I'll give you a anecdotal. I didn't go to journalism school. I didn't take any writing courses. I was writing for my blog for my company, my search firm, and I enjoyed doing it. And then Forbes said, "Hey, would you like to write for us?" And I'm like, "Sure." And I found a passion in later life. I'm not old, but I'm not young. But and it was surprising because I kind of had that stereotype. Well, come on, I've been doing this forever. How could I kind of now start do something else? And I found something I really love, and I think I'm okay at it. Maybe a little bit of average at it, but that's okay because I'm still, even though I've been doing like 4 years, I'm still learning and I'm still going, and I'm cool with that. I don't mind, like if I'll get things from editors or from you're always gonna get comments when you post things, but that's okay because I'm like, all right, I'm learning, and
Absolutely.
everything you get me, I'm gonna listen and absorb and learn from it, and not and not take it to heart and say, how can I be better? So the same thing with people who are looking to go and learn to be a programmer or a digital marketer or analyst. Yeah, it might be some bumps in the road, it might be hard, it might you might look foolish at times, but so what? It's a long-term
Yes,
goal that
that's
counts.
right. That's right. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because that's actually, one of the things that we really hone in on with our own learners and our own students is helping them sort of combat a little bit of imposter syndrome, meaning sometimes the barriers to really being successful when changing tracks or switching careers isn't so much the learning the kind of core technical content. Sometimes it's just believing that you can do it. It's believing that you have the right to enter the field and be seen as a respected professional. So I love that, you didn't use
Yeah.
the phrase imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
but but overcoming that is really critical.
I think I'm glad you said that, because for a lot of people who are watching, they probably do feel that, like, I'm not cut out for that. That's not me,
Yeah, that's right.
And by you saying that, it's like, wait, why not? That could be me, Of course that could be me. So
Yeah.
that's what
And
they
that's
needed to hear.
especially true sometimes when you don't see role models
Yeah.
that have your same sort of, background, or have come from the same field, or look the same way that you do. It's that can be particularly acute. Yeah, I think it's really having not only that sort of beginner's mindset, which I think is one side of the coin, but the other side of the coin is sort of the self-confidence, to believe that you can persist and achieve the goal.
I like to introduce you to these folks. So have you ever heard the Black and Brilliant network?
It sounds so, I think
Um,
so. Tell me, have you
oh,
had them on your show?
yeah, and not on the show, but I've interviewed them. We're going to probably have them on. Christine, are you still on the line, or?
Yes, I'm here.
What is it, Tony? And I'm spacing out on their
Tony
name.
and Perky Ethic.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And what they're doing, what made me bring this up, Lisa, is that they're trying to help underserved people, Black, brown, where people who maybe aren't traditional in tech, and to have this kind of group where they'll mentor, coach, help, and show, because then they're saying, like, what happens when you interview sometimes for a job, you're not familiar with the whole tech interview process. So you need somebody to kind of guide you through and hold your hand. So that kind of addresses what you were talking about, where, hey, people who haven't been in that space and don't know people in the space, how they can get there. So there are folks
Well,
maybe.
I would. Well,
Yeah.
it sounds certainly right up our alley,
Yeah,
and aligned with our values, and that's one of the reasons that even in the work that that we do in our programs, it's not just about the technical content, but it's really coaching people
Coaching,
through that
mentoring.
entire process,
Yeah.
coaching and mentoring them through the imposter syndrome, coaching and mentoring
Yeah.
through how do you get through a technical interview, how do you respond to fit questions.
Yes.
So it's both, it's not just kind of, learning the core content, but it's really the whole process, navigating that whole
Yeah.
process.
Well, this is great. I really love that you're able to walk it through. I hope the people who are watching how can they reach you? If they're interested, what's the best way to get in touch with you or General Assembly?
just start by going to our website. It's generalassembly. So General Assembly with the dot before the
Okay.
L and the Y is one good
That's
place.
cute.
And
Okay.
for exactly, and for those of the viewers that are on LinkedIn, I'm Lisa Lewin, and I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. So would love to open up any conversations that way as well. And I know we're nearly at time, but I
Yeah.
wanted to just say one thing, one other thing that really gives me energy
Sure.
around this podcast in particular. It's something that you said earlier, which is creating space to focus on the good, to focus on what makes us happy and what gives us energy. I completely understand people who are doing the doom scrolling and
Yeah.
can appreciate, it's I say all the time, it's tough, leading and working in what feels like, an age of collapse, right? And so that's why I think it's ever more important really to create space like this and conversations like this to really put a fine point and illuminate the things that are working, the things where we're, progressing, and the things that are giving us energy. So thank you, Jack, for being one of those
My
folks that's
pleasure.
creating that kind of space.
My pleasure. The only thing I have exception to is your background is better than mine. I thought my wallpaper was good, but you have a really cool background there.
It's
So
our
you
New
could,
York,
yeah,
headquarters.
you're giving me
So
real big competition. I got to up my game. I don't know what I can do back there to make it look better. And one other thing, as you open up your international offices, when you need somebody to check out, like, France and all sorts of cool places, maybe, you need some outside person to check just to make sure
exactly.
everything
Our
is
next
going.
conversation will be
Yeah.
from Paris, right?
Yeah, exactly. That'd be cool. That'd be awesome. But I really
Amazing.
appreciate so much. Thanks. This is great. And it's like you said, it's so important because people are really hungry for advice, guidance, what to do, how to reinvent themselves, how to find new jobs, where to go to. And it's one thing sometimes when you write about, hey, you should go do this, but like, all right, how, where? So then when you have someone like yourself who could walk through, here's how you can do it and give really actionable advice that people could take and take action on it right away. That's awesome. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I know as a CEO, you're really busy and I know you're going international. You have a ton of things going on. So thanks for spending some time and sharing what all the great stuff you're doing.
It was a real
Excellent.
pleasure. Thank you to you, and thank you to Christine.
Thanks. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.